you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lordy?
Which side are you on, Lord? Which side are you on,
my lordy?
Which side are you on, Lord? Which side are you on,
my lordy?
Which side are you on, Lord? Which side are you on?
Oh, brother, can you tell me? Oh, tell me if you can. Will you be an Uncle Tom or will you be a man, my lordy?
Which side are you on, Lord? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, Lord? Which side are you on?
Have you heard about the paddy wagon that
and SNCC's great contribution to the movement was that every time the SNCC went in, it organized young people into organization. But not only it organized the town that went into organization. SNCC was a group that organized organization. And that, like, we went to Albany, Georgia, we organized the Albany Movement. And the Albany Movement, we could executive staff of that movement, directors and everything, chairman, president, what have you. And then we get a youth movement, and we have leadership of that. And SNCC would serve both leadership, and we weren't the leaders, but we were the servers of that. And we would create the leadership, but we would call ourselves putting ourselves out of business. We serve them, make them strong enough to be the leaders, and then they would take it with anything we could do to serve them, march with them, fight with them, go to jail with them, whatever. We would always do that. So SNCC built organizations, and every town we went in, we left organization. Every community we went in, we left organization. So SNCC, and that we didn't see ourselves as leaders, but only a group that probably we could say make leaders. And that, and where SLC and those brothers, Martin and those, they saw themselves as leaders. And when they go, they would be the leader, and everybody followed them and whatever. But SNCC had another tactical organizer. That was not our strategy. We felt that the people need to be organized, and they were the leaders.
That is very interesting. But my perception of the movement is that there has always been this perception of a divide between SNCC and the NAACP and the other formal activist groups.
And SLC, it was. SNCC was made, they were, Martin was the preachers, and NAACP was the old established leadership, and SNCC was the youth that came to organize the people, college students mostly, except for me. I was the dropout student here. And that SNCC was the youth, and they called SNCC as the young people, and that when we formed the SNCC, it was students, so we could have became under Martin King's organization as a youth group, but we formed our own group, and we became independent, and we were more what they call, he said we were more militant,
right,
and we were more ready to attack and demonstrate and go. Like, for example, when we went to Mississippi, it said we were going to Mississippi, Martin said that wasn't ready, said Mississippi wasn't civilized yet, and we shouldn't take on that project, which we did, and we had great battles and struggles there. But SNCC was more militant and confronting any and everything was always, and nothing was too dangerous, and no fight was too big. And that we took a lot of things on, and anytime we find the truth, we didn't mind telling them. And that where other people were very, sometimes accommodating with SNCC, so there was a difference between SNCC and the old line leadership, and they criticized us for our youthness and militancy and all that. And so we always had that conflict inside the civil rights movement, and that so SNCC, by its militancy, really took the leadership of that whole civil rights movement, and was more aggressive and had many projects, and so SNCC was the one that the other leadership had to run behind and try to keep up with, because we always had great activity going and what have you. We organized Mississippi, we organized Selma, and that we had great militant movements throughout the South. So even in Mississippi, and we had mass meetings where people come and preach and sing and what have you, and that those meeting people were talking about they wanted their freedom and they wanted to change, and they would tell the conditions of the people, and we would knock on doors and house to house and just fill churches up. We'd create freedom schools, or we'd go and just talk about what white folks are doing, what America's doing, what the police is doing, our condition and how wrong it is. And we could talk about things in these freedom schools that they couldn't talk about in the schools, that the preacher was scared to talk about in the church. And that we were teaching people and teaching them to be strong and letting them know that white folks wasn't no God and that they had us in slavery and what have you. And that we just did that and went through the fields and the plantations, and in the cities we went through the ghettos and the pool rooms and the alleys and knocked on the doors and talked to the maids and created boycotts and marches and demonstrations and ran buses, companies out of business. And I remember when we had the bus boycott in South Georgia, ran the bus company ran out of business before they let blacks ride on the front. And then we bought us an old school bus, and I was a young boy driving a big school bus. I used to drive the maids to work until they 5 o'clock in the morning, take them to the maids to work, drop them off at the different houses, and then go pick them up about 6 o'clock that evening, 5 or 6 o'clock that evening, and bring them back and stuff like that. So SNCC operated on many, many levels of organization. Registered black in Mississippi, went to plantation, found people like Fannie Lou Hamer and told her, you ain't free, and she said, out your way. And she started, she was a sharecropper, and she tried to register to vote, and she started speaking out, and they put her in jail, beat her, and threw bombs at her, shot at her, and all the people around her shot them, threw bombs at them, took some of the people around her out and lynched them like they did Cheney, Swan, and Goodman, killed some of her friends like Medgar Evans, because they were trying to register people to vote. But when we say register to vote, we ain't just talking about register to vote, we talking about plantation and what was going on the plantation and the white racism that people were facing every day, and just all different aspects of slavery came up, but we just used voter registration as the stepping ground. And when we stepped into all the other conditions that the people were facing, because when we would go to the people, we would learn so much about the people and learn so much about the suffering and so much about all the different levels of injustice that people would face. And in the rural area, they would come, voter registration, they would come tell us those things in the mass meetings, and we saw that the way the peasants work. And then in the cities, people would come, we did voter registration, but direct action, the people, the maids and the workers and the people doing the working there would come and tell about all the injustice and how they work next to white people and near white people, and they make $3 a day, the white man make $20 a day, and how they do the work and the white folks get to pay, and how they're beaten, how the courts put them in jail and put them in prison, beat them down, shoot them, lynching, find people on the road with their balls cut off, and the penis sticking in their mouth, and different kinds of lynching, and we had to cut people down out of trees, got white folks and all those kind of things. And the people saw us as warriors for just standing up and speaking out against those kinds of things and calling the sheriffs and the government murderers and all that. So SNCC became heroes among the people. But so SNCC was an organization that went to the people to serve the people and meet the needs of people, and we were educated to see what we've come to see, and that when we come to find that we need to have a mass organization inside of Mississippi, we organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party with the leadership from Aaron Henry and Fannie Lou Hamer, Miss Palmer, Miss Gray, and just to name a few, and the great organizers, young men our age back then, organizers, Kwame, and all kind of people. And that we organized that and got worldwide attention. We fought, they lynched us, they burnt down over 65, 75 churches the summer of '64. They burnt schools, they blowed up houses, they attacked leaders like my brother down in Hattiesburg, went to his house, bombed him, shot him, just shot out threw gas, fire in the house, burned the house down, killed him in his house where his white family had to run out the windows and run down through the woods. Charlie McParker went down to Reservoir, they murdered him, and we just saw many tragedies and murders and killings and lynching, and that we stayed on the front line. But anyway, it was just so much happening, and SNCC was an organization that was out there doing a whole lot of kinds of things, but we be criticized. We came not only to criticize the sheriffs and the local government, the state government, we began to be very critical of the federal government, and began to see that this country was not going to do what it's supposed to do for our people. And in we went to Lowndes County, Alabama, where we organized Black Panther Party. We picked up guns. We began to defend ourselves openly. We began to not allow them plantation owners or Ku Klux Klan or sheriff to come to our house and shoot them up. We began to pick up guns and defend our territories. When we drive down the street, they get behind and start shooting. We start shooting back. And we began to make more militant talks, take more militant positions, and we saw ourselves as soldiers. And that not only seeing ourselves as soldiers, but we organized Black Panther in Lowndes County, and then in Mississippi, we marched across Alabama, across Mississippi on the Black Power March after they shot marriages. Martin King, Whitney Young, Roy Wilkins, all of us met and said, Deacons for Defense out of Bogalusa, who had picked up guns in defense of our people. We decided we'd walk 240 miles for freedom and liberation of our people, telling our people to be strong. And because we had been shot and we wanted to just make a strong comeback and let our people know that we weren't going to take that kind of thing. And that on that march, we began to talk about black power and power for black people, and we just kept, raising the ante of what was happening to our people, to the point that we said we need power, we need to govern our own self, we need to stop, need a force that can stop the white man from killing, raping, robbing, murdering our people, stop the hunger, starvation, the miseducation, the uneducation, the shacks we lived in and still live in, and no water, no this, no that. Stop colonialism, basically, Black Power was saying, build independence and freedom, and Black Power pointed us toward Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and Africa pointed us toward Africa, and there the SNCC was a stepping ground for worldwide international education. And also, one other point is that at Tuskegee they killed our students, Sammy Young, what have you, going in the back, going into doors where white people go. That was a stepping ground for us to speak out against the war in Viet Nam, and we took thousands of people into the streets against the war, and now we're fighting imperialism and what have you, and the struggle just expanded.
Okay.